Hello, everybody. Adelaja here. Welcome back to the series that I'm doing on understanding suicide, mass shooting, and depression. I hope you've been encouraged or enlightened by this series that we're doing. It's going to be a series that comprises of maybe 40 videos or more, but I'd really like to encourage you to share this message with your friends and family members, especially people who might be having challenges, who might be suffering from any form of depression, suicidal thoughts, or anything that is not understandable to regular people. The last class I did was about how to detect the disorders in your thought process. And when I was talking about how to fix it, one of the ways that I recommended that we fix the problem is that we practice recording of things that happen to you and the kind of thoughts that comes to your mind on daily basis and on even maybe minute basis, especially when they are when they are negative. But today we are going to be talking about factors that could be responsible for your depression. But especially we're going to be talking about external factors that will be responsible for your depression or for the situation you are going through. Or maybe it's not your depression, it could be for the depression of your loved ones, family members. So what are external factors that could be responsible for depression in general? Then later on, I'm going to talk about the internal factors. After this, maybe tomorrow, I will talk about the next factors, the internal factors that is responsible for depression. So today I'm going to be talking about the external factors that may be responsible for or might be responsible for the thing you are going through, or for the depression that is in your children, in your loved ones, in your colleagues, in your family members. So what are these external factors that might be responsible for depression? Well, with you yourself, I want to teach you, for you yourself, to use that same principle that we use, the principle of recording your thoughts. You have to use that same principle to discover or to determine what is responsible, what are the external factors that are responsible for your depression, by observing yourself, study yourself, study your life, study when the moods change, study when the depressive attacks and symptoms come upon you. Observe, just try to observe yourself, observe your feelings, observe your thoughts, examine your experiences, either present or past, to be able to say, okay, what are the experiences that I have that leads to this particular thought or this particular feeling? What are the experiences, what are the thoughts that I had that led to this particular feeling or this state of mind? Or what are the environment, where was I? Especially because when we talk about external factors, we are mainly talking about environment or people around us. So I'm talking about external factors that could be responsible for your depression or for depression in general. We have to look at our environment. So what you will need to do this time, just the way you follow your thoughts and you study your thoughts and write down and record the thoughts and the situations that have led to that thought, the same thing we are going to be doing this time. You will need to study the environment that you are in or that you are in that has led or triggered the depressive feeling. So try to remember, try to study, try to recollect. We cannot always recollect everything, we cannot always remember everything, but try to recollect what are the things that were happening in your life at that time when that depression came. What are the things that were happening in your family, in your environment that could have triggered the depressive state of mind that you got yourself into. So I'm also going to help you. I'm going to be giving you some tips and some suggestions, so you could also use this suggestion to find it easier because you might not be able to analyze and remember everything. But once I will begin to give you one by one the suggestions, you'll be able to use them to compare and to analyze your situation. Yeah, were you in that particular environment at that time or not? Because what we are trying to find out, we're trying to look for triggers. What were the triggering factors that led you to the situation where you are right now, including analyzing your thoughts and identity and feelings, so that we might be able to identify how did the environment affect you. What thoughts were you having during that time, in that environment? What thoughts and what feelings did you have when something was happening around you? So let me give you some triggers, some triggering factors that are external factors that could have been responsible for your depression or for the depression of your loved ones. Number one, did you experience any form of trauma? That is the most popular one, right? Did you experience any form of trauma? Was there any traumatic experience in your life that could have led to that kind of depression? For example, there is what we call, of course, post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is the depression. I mentioned it a few days ago, but it's the depression that comes. That is really, it is still depression, but it is the depression that didn't come from somewhere that you don't know or something that is just psychological. But this is a depression that is the easiest to explain, the most justifiable depression, you could say, is the depression that comes when or after someone has suffered some form of trauma or the other. So if you have suffered, sorry guys, if you suffered some kind of traumatic event, some traumatic experiences in your life prior to that depression, then that is explainable. That is the easiest one to identify. But when it comes to depression, you see, it's not always so easy to identify the reason for it. It's not always you can find a reason for it, because there are some depressions that come, I don't know even where to categorize this. Is it as external factor or internal factor? Maybe it's more of internal factor that comes as a result of chemical disbalances. But that is much more difficult to explain because you don't know what has happened to you. You think you are okay, you had everything is okay. You don't see chemical balances or imbalances. But but this one we are talking about, post-traumatic stress disorder, is totally different. It's the easiest one to explain. It's not as mysterious as the other ones. So check your life and see what were the possible traumatic things that happened in your life that has led you to that depression. So apart from traumatic experience, there are some other things that could have led to depression. Let's say you have gone through a series of disillusionments and disappointments, failures especially. So you are doing things, you are expecting something, one thing, second thing, and it's always failing you. One failure to the other, one after the other. That could definitely lead to depression. So number one is, what are the traumatic experiences? You could think about them and write them down. Then you will be able to trace your depression back to them. Or another factor that you might want to consider, if you didn't have any very traumatic situation, then look at disappointments, failures could be another thing that could trigger, that could have been responsible. Did you go through a series of failure, disappointments? Yeah, that could be a factor. Why? An external factor that could have led to your situation. Now, apart from disappointment and disillusionment, there is another thing that could lead to depression. Simply, and it looks ordinary, but we people respond to different things differently. So this third factor is called dissatisfaction. Are you living in an environment where you are dissatisfied? Are you living in an environment where you are not happy, where you are not satisfied? So it could be dissatisfaction with your job. It could be dissatisfaction with your family. It could be dissatisfaction with your school. So look at it, study, remember, look into your environment. Are there some deep dissatisfactions? Are there some things that you greatly are not satisfied with, but you find yourself helpless to change? I think this is what has been responsible for the surge and in the rate of depression in Africa right now, especially in Nigeria. I think the level of dissatisfaction with everything is driving people to depression. And like I said, after depression, when depression is not detected in time, it could lead to suicide, but it will also lead to mass shooting, or it could even lead to joining terrorist organizations. Those are suicidal tendencies that could come out of chronic dissatisfaction. When there is dissatisfaction everywhere, it could lead to depression, suicide, mass shooting. So let's look at people we are working with, or people who are experiencing depression, and let's study these external factors. They might just be responsible for the things for this challenge that we are facing, for this problem. There are some people that actually, then the next factor I'm going to talk about, there are some people that experience depression as a result of too much anxiety or anticipation. If you, let's take a student, let's say a teenager or a high school student, and you are waiting for your exams. But even before, not that you failed the exam yet, but even before giving the exam, just the anticipation and the fear and the anxiety of that exam could lead to depression. So, you are so excited, you are so aroused in your emotions that it could lead to some form of imbalance, chemical imbalance in you. But it's not just for students. When you are looking forward for something for so long, or you are expecting something, so eagerly, and so you are so excited about something, or you are worried about something, or you are fearful about maybe a presentation, exam, a review, maybe at work or at school. And this could even happen to people who are expecting something good. But when you become too excited, when you are too engrossed in that thought, it could lead to you just falling to a state of indifference and a state of depression. So I'm just giving you different varieties that are possible, so that you could, look into yourself or into the life and environment of people that you are working with who might be challenged in this area, so that you will be able to see what factors might be responsible for their own particular situation. Now, another factor, external factor, that could be responsible for depression is family crisis. Family crisis. Maybe it's not even a crisis. It could actually be as simple as family problem, like disagreement with your father, problem with your father, with your mother, with your siblings. So if you have a problem with your family members, people who are close to you, or people who are supposed to be close to you, near you, and and you cannot seem to find a way out, a solution, that could also lead to a depression, especially if you These are people who are supposed to be your loved ones. These are people who are supposed to be close to you. If these people are supposed to be near you and who are supposed to understand you, people you expect to understand you, people you expect to love and care for you, and they're the ones that you don't seem to find a common language with. You cannot understand them. It's like, they hate you or they reject you. That could lead to depression. Another external factor which is connected to family, of course, is divorce. Most of the divorces in this world lead to depression, especially for the women. Divorce is said to be equal to somebody losing 50% of his life when you are divorced for the woman. For the men, it's not as severe, but sometimes the men also go through depression. So that's why depression, the men will rather, so they will say sometimes they would rather kill their spouses than letting her go, or letting her be divorced, or letting her be with another man. Sometimes those things are as a result of depression. You've probably heard of women going to fight and going to fight the lover of their husband, and they're going to fight their husband in public. And those things are actually most of the time as a result of not just emotions, not just being frustrated and angry. When people do things like that, to a large extent, they have lost it. And they have lost it to depression before going out to do something as horrible as that. So that could be a reaction to their depression, their state of depression. So when there is divorce, separation, or actually, apart from the family situation like divorce problem in the family, let's look at another factor. Another factor that could be responsible for depression is a major shift in life or a major change in life. So there are different things that could be responsible for major shift, major change in life. If there is a drastic change, for example, a lot of parents can experience depression because all their children have left home. So especially when a mother is close to the daughter or to the child, or when parents are close to their children and then you send them to college and they have gone, sometimes parents experience depression because it's a major change from the lifestyle they were used to. Others could be, even the divorce also could bring about a major change. Or maybe you are doing very well before, your family was doing fine financially, and then you had a major change like bankruptcy, and you lost everything, and you are now living in penury, which you are not used to before. That could be a major change, and it could lead to major depression. If, for example, people who have traveled from Europe back to Africa, their children have experienced major depression back in school because of the big change and in the environment that they have experienced, because they were living a comfortable life before, and now they have to be living in a situation and environment that they are not used to, and they are encountering some needs that they are not used to. So that also could be responsible for a major depression. Of course, another factor that could be responsible for depression is death, of course, tragic. That is almost connected to post-traumatic stress disorder, but post-traumatic stress disorder are mainly things that happen to you from outside, but this is also related to that, which is death. Maybe the death of a loved one, the death of a lover, the death of a friend, especially if you are very close, the death of a child, the death of a spouse. Any death, especially if the person is close to you, will lead to a major change in life and a major shock to the system. So death also could be a factor in in depression. So these are also all external factors. It's also coming from outside of you. Another factor that could be responsible for depression is, this will be surprising because it will look most unlikely. It will look most unlikely. The factor is that a person could experience depression after a seemingly positive life event. After a seemingly positive life event, like somebody could experience depression after marriage. You just married, and it's like that's a good positive event. But you could slip right into depression after that. Of course, that also could be connected to the chemical disbalances and the shock to the system and the drastic change in lifestyle. But even positive things like that, like marriage, could end up in, it could lead to depression. Drastic changes, positive things like a birth of a child, giving birth to a child, especially for the women. Women go through a whole lot of stress. It's almost like traumatic stress and disorder to give birth. Giving birth to a child itself is traumatic because of the pain, and even pregnancy itself is traumatic. So a lot of women actually go into depression during pregnancy. Most people might not know it, but a lot of women are in depression when they are pregnant because their body is changing. There is a shock to their system. And so pregnancy is a positive development. It's a good thing that you are pregnant, but that could lead to depression too. Now, what I'm saying doesn't mean that all the things I'm mentioning are all necessarily bad. Does that mean we shouldn't be pregnant? No, I'm just trying to give you the reasons that could be responsible for depression, so that you understand yourself, so that you'll be able to understand what's going on. You'll be able to understand yourself. You'll be able to understand and be able to explain and be able to detect where what you are suffering from came from. So that's just what we're talking about right now. We're not talking about is it good to marry or is it good not to marry or give birth to children. That's not the fact. That's not the point. We just want to help you understand where your problem is coming from. So apart from pregnancy, even the process of giving birth, the process of delivery itself is mostly traumatic, and that could lead to depression. But talking about positive things that could, positive changes, positive things have happened in your life, and it could lead to depression. Even a promotion at work could lead to depression. Any major change like that are supposed to be positive could be a shock to your system, bring about chemical imbalances, and lead to depression. Events like graduation from school, events like vacation or returning from vacation. A lot of people experience depression after coming back from vacation as well, or holidays. And there are actually people who experience depression during vacation and or holidays. So to them, holidays is not a merry time. It's not a time of jokes and joy and happiness. But every holiday could be depressive for them. So holidays, special occasions could be factors that trigger depression. Now, this might be mild depression, but if it's not treated, it could go worse. Things could go worse and go. So that's why we're having 400 million people all over the world suffering from depression right now. Because there are so many factors that could be responsible for depression, especially these external factors. That's why we have every 40 seconds, every 30 seconds, somebody committing suicide. Because anything could lead to depression, including any of these external factors that I'm talking about. So we need to take a moment to reflect and write down what we think, what factors we think that must have probably contributed to the change in our life and to the depression that we are experiencing. So these are external factors that could be responsible for depression. I will also be talking about internal factors. But before I do that, just want to say that make sure that you write down these things, think about them, analyze once you have identified the environment or the event or the triggers or the triggering point. Try to go back in your thoughts to those events. What happened? What were the thoughts that came to you that time? What were the feelings that you had? And then let's try to deal with them the way I taught you already how to deal with thought disorders. Okay, I think I will have to stop this one now, and I will continue tomorrow by talking about the internal factors that could be responsible for depression. Meanwhile, if you have not yet noticed, you see I have this book there. It's called Mountain of Ignorance. Mountain of Ignorance, because it's most of the time what we don't know that is killing us. I'm sure most of you might not know a lot of these things that you heard today, and this book will help you to really deal with that darkness, because depression itself is darkness, and ignorance also is darkness. So let's look for a way of, let's read that book. It will show us different methods and ways of dealing with the darkness, any form of darkness in our lives, including ignorance, including depression. So that book, you could get it on Amazon. You could also get, if you're in Africa, you could get it on DSA Books Planet, dsabooksplanet.com. And if you want to buy electronically, you could buy them on okadabooks.com. If you have not yet joined my mentorship program, you could go to sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. And if you want to join our team to Nigeria, our Nigerian transformation program, you can go to sundayadelajablog.com as well, just /Nigeria this time. And I will come back and see you tomorrow. Peace.